Come now, all you mangy dogs. Swab the decks and hoist the sails. The guns on board be needing some proper manning. Pieces of 8 and a fine wench on your arm, if your work be not too shoddy. Be careful not to flounder too badly, though, or you may have to dance the hempen jig as we see you to Davy Jones. Jeffy, my boy, on with the show.
Well, shiver me timbers. To our listeners from across all regions of the planet, welcome once again aboard the Robin Hood, flagship to the world's one and only cooperatively inspired charity podcast network, WPRPN. Live streaming today from just off the shores of South Korea's sun-shining State Summit Peninsula. You're listening to episode 105 of Pirate Radio Podcasts. I'm your host, as always, the ship's Chief Communications Officer, Jaffe Ryder. Editor-in-Chief of UFO Digest, Tai Chi Master, and Private Intelligence Analyst, Robert Morningstar holds a degree in psychology from Fordham University. An expert in Chinese language and history, the longtime New York City resident is an FAA-licensed pilot and instrument ground instructor with 23 years of flying experience. Having studied the paranormal and UFOs for over 40 years, Robert has also published numerous research articles detailing the government conspiracy surrounding the JFK assassination. Among his other literary endeavors, Morningstar has written extensively in exposing NASA's use of disinformation technology as a primary means of suppressing evidence of extraterrestrial life, along with the real nature and genuine threat of the UFO phenomenon. Appearing on a multitude of TV, radio, and podcast shows over the years, including Angel Espino's PSN Radio, The Lip TV, and Coast to Coast AM, it's now time for Robert to join us here on Pirate Radio Podcasts, and the network flagship we call the Robin Hood. And the Robin Hood is the name of the ship for good reason, for anyone who's following the way that we have things set up here from this end of the operation, with the major emphasis on profit sharing, of course, and redistribution of any donations that happen to come our way. Pretty much 50% in many cases is what we're looking at as far as going back, targeted for charitable and worthy causes. In the meantime, yes, folks, the sun is indeed shining here on the Korean Peninsula in a major historic way, to the point where in some ways I find myself at a loss for words. The breathtaking speed to which things are unfolding. We do have our guest standing by at the ready, Robert Morningstar. We had been doing a bit of a sound check in the lead up to things here today, as always, and we're working on getting the kinks worked out of the system. So one of the issues we're definitely going to be talking about will be this business of what we presently see. Anyone who's paying attention to world media taking place on the peninsula, looks like things are moving in a pretty positive direction by all accounts and indications. Who knows, maybe even Donald Trump will be up for the next Nobel Peace Prize. Robert, if you're there. Maybe you've got some thoughts on the matter. Hopefully he hasn't dropped off. There we go.
No, I have many thoughts on the matter. Thank you for having me on the show.
Welcome aboard.
I'm elated.
Yeah, welcome aboard the Robin Hood. Straight off the top here, let's get this out of the way. It's a bit of a curveball, although we sort of did talk about it just through text chat. I think like a month or so ago, there was a bit of interaction taking place. The Robin Hood, though, seems to have some special significance in your life. I'm not sure about the pirate angle or not, although your father was a captain out on the high seas during the Second World War, from what I understand.
Yeah, that's a very interesting connection you have. Yes, Robin Hood is a very big part of my life. I grew up in the 1950s watching Robin Hood with Richard Green on television, and of course Errol Flynn. You know, that's an archetype in my life, and that's the kind of person that I like to be: athletic, happy-go-lucky, fair. Likes ladies, like Maid Marian. You know, life was good in Sherwood Forest. The sad thing is I actually visited England 8 times, and I went to Sherwood Forest, and it was really disappointing. They cut it all down and built a residential area. But I was able to go to another forest called Epping Forest, where Queen Boadicea had her earthworks and the resistance of the Romans. So the Robin Hood is a big part of my life. As I said to you earlier, I like to say I modeled my life on Flash Gordon, Robin Hood, and Batman, and so far so good. So I'm satisfied with it. By that I mean that all of us should have models for our lives, and we should choose positive role models, which I was lucky to have. We were lucky to have growing up in the 50s, the 60s. The role models were in the movies, the role models were in sports, the role models were in politics. For example, my affection and my affinity with John F. Kennedy, and none with Lyndon Johnson. You know, there's charisma, and when you find a good model, you know, imitation is the greatest form of flattery, and so imitate good people is what I say. Stay in shape. And all of them had those qualities, though President Kennedy was a little frail because of his splintered back. But you know what? A lot of people criticize President Kennedy and the Kennedys as corrupt and all of that. And what I say to people, the important thing about the Kennedys is not who they were, but who they wanted us to become. You understand? They had a vision of Americans. They had a vision of the future. It was very positive. It was very inclusive. And I still cherish that. I met Robert Kennedy in person. That was a shocker. His limousine pulled up. I didn't know it was his limousine. I was coming home with a bunch of high school kids in senior year, which would have been 1967, the year that he was running for senator, and we all supported him. So this big limo caddy pulls up on 5th Avenue, and actually it was Park Avenue and 95th Street. We were all going across Central Park. Car pulls up, the door stops right in front of me, as if by design. Door swings open, out steps Robert Kennedy, and he was so rosy. He was so rosy because he wore makeup. In those days, they had those hot Klieg lights for news. You know, it wasn't video. So if you didn't wear makeup, you'd come out with a real pasty, glared out face. So Kennedy was always ready for that. But he got up and I got out of a car. He looked at me. I looked at him. We both have hazel eyes. We both had hook noses. I was like, wow, you look like my cousin, you know? And we just smiled, and all of us were in, literally starstruck. As he walked out, he smiled at all of us, recognized us all as high school guys at, we were at not at Fordham, at Power Memorial Academy. At the same time, Kareem Jabbar was there as Lou Alcindor. So, the important thing about the Kennedys is their vision of the future of America and the kind of people that they wanted us to be. You know, we're all flawed human beings. Nobody's here is perfect. Yeah. Would anybody perfect please raise your hand? Kim Jong-un, put your hand up. So anyway, just a joke. Hope I don't get you in trouble.
Oh, no. Hopefully not. I don't think so. Not for making a little joke.
Yeah.
Just to that extent. Oh, if I was in the north now, that might be a different story. You don't want to joke about the dear leader, or you'll find yourself ending up in hot water more often than not.
Yeah. Well, you know, I'm very gratified by the course of events, but I don't want to be a Pollyanna, and I've seen things like this before, and that's why when I wrote to my email group, I said we're going to world peace on the horizon or calm before the storm, because this is very reminiscent of 1939 and Munich and the false peace that was negotiated there. And all of us know Neville Chamberlain coming out of the airplane waving the contract with Hitler and saying he guaranteed peace in our time. Well, the only thing that's going to guarantee peace in our time is a little bit of trust and a lot of verification. You know, trust but verify.
Absolutely.
So that's where Kim Jong-un really finds himself.
Let's just put the brakes on there, and the reason being is that we've got, it looks like, some streaming issues. I'm not sure if they're still persisting or not, but definitely some major grumpiness in the listening audience. Although it appears now that our health, the stream health, is coming up green here, so it looks like things are in pretty good working order. For some reason, we were getting some interference there from the get-go. Unfortunately,
Don't be surprised. It often happens when I appear on a show and start talking about controversial things. You know, Mr. Murphy or Mr. Hoover show up. You know what I mean?
Well, we've been, ourselves as well, too. So with the endless cock blocking is what it seems, really, on multiple fronts.
There's another that I'd like to address, and it is not always human intervention. Right now, we are suffering an onslaught of abuses from artificial intelligence, and that's one of the things I'm really speaking out against. I don't like artificial intelligence. I don't like it being used on me. I don't like it distracting me while I'm in the middle of something. I don't like talking on the phone and saying something rather esoteric on a telephone call, landline, than going to my computer and seeing that word in advertising or in messages. It's a real nuisance, and it's disturbing to me.
It's that bad, is it? With just a landline speaking, I know that with the keyword, the Echelon program, of course, which people, if they haven't heard about, they might want to just do a quick DuckDuckGo search and find out more information about that. But you're talking about just a simple landline, and then it pops up on your Google or cell phones.
One example. I'm on a landline about a year and a half ago talking to one of my students or Tai Chi Frisbee partners, and she wants to know what kind of disc to buy. And so I describe a couple of discs to her, and then she says to me, I saw an orange one that I really like a lot. And I said, what's the weight? So we were talking about the weight, the density, and all that stuff. So the weight was right, and the brand was right, and the color was orange. So we hang up the phone. I walk over to my computer. I go on Facebook, and there in Facebook is a picture of the Frisbee that she had been talking about on the phone, and subsequently mailed me a small link through Gmail to show me the disc. And
you're just a conspiracy theorist.
But you know what? Conspiracies are real. The word is in the Webster's dictionary because the act existed before the word was formed. You know.
Sure. So, there's a whole section of law, I believe, that's dedicated to this phenomenon of conspiracy. People getting together And literally, the word just means to breathe together, I guess, from what I understand in the etymological. So, and conspiracy. Oh, how about that? There, it's the piracy. Oh, okay, now we get it.
Con means with, and the spiracy is breathing together.
That's right.
So, with breath. But listen, I would like to say a shout out to my dear friend Dr. J, live in LA. He's recuperating from pneumonia, and he told me that he'd tune in. He's trying to get back in shape for broadcasting. So I want to just say shout out to Dr. J.
Absolutely. That was one of the, in fact, points that we wanted to bring up with you. I know that just in the brief conversation we had yesterday, trying once again to just get things set on a relatively even keel, working out the kinks to what we're hoping to present to people today, that Dr. J, as well as Angel Espino, Danny Benton, those are just a couple of names, people who had, I guess had mentioned you as being a potential guest back in the day. So you definitely had been on our radar for quite some time, even before that, though. But let me just let's just set things aside there for the moment. And we wish, of course, all the best to Dr. J. Yes, he has been struggling in a big way. And I was going to ask you about that. You mentioning that you were going to drop by his show there for a visit. Looks like he's back in operation. That's great. But let's hear a little bit first, before we get carried away or carried along here too much, just for people who don't really know too much about Robert Morningstar, and let's not get you confused with Robert Morningsky, who appeared on the Art Bell show numerous times back in the day, as well as Robert Ghost Wolf. There's another kind of, Robert with a native surname, but it's a bit of a biographical sketch and overview, something of your backstory. People can get more of a clear sense of what you're all about. Sure.
Well, I grew up in New York City. I'm educated in Manhattan and went to Fordham University. I got my degree in psychology. I was always psychic, and everyone in my family was always psychic. So I was naturally interested in parapsychology. Psychology first, and then as my vehicle to study parapsychology. And in those days, in the 60s, it was psychic events were being denied. Western science was in deep denial about the psychic and the spiritual world. And so only Duke University was conducting parapsychology experiments, and they were at a really lame, rudimentary level, just trying to prove it existed by flipping Zener cards. Zener cards were 5 cards with 5 patterns: wave, straight line, cross, star, circle, etc. And people would get a deck of those, and the tester would hold the deck, and the testee would have to guess what the next card was. And they were showing that some people had an aptitude for, quote-unquote, guessing at a higher rate than probability. But that was not what I was interested in. I was already aware that many people in my life had that gift: precognition, lucid dreaming. We used to call it generically ESP. And I had it, and I wanted to develop it. I couldn't understand why other humans weren't so cognizant of it. And that's how I got into the program, the psychology program at Fordham University. I was originally enrolled as a pre-med student, and then I decided that healing the mind is more efficacious than working on the body after it's been damaged. The mind and the body are one. This is what I've learned in Tai Chi. In Tai Chi, the shape of the mind imposes the shape of the body. I believe that the human body is a liquid container, a magnetic bottle, if you will, and that the shape of that magnetic bottle determines our morphology, our form. And that when your mind is correct and your self-images are true, for example, Flash Gordon, Robin Hood, and Batman, and by that I mean true in the sense of shape, structure, agility, centeredness is a good general term for it, then the body will be healthy. It'll be in harmony with its environment. It will be in harmony with its internal environment and its external environment. So in the course of going to college, I joined the fencing team at Fordham University. And then a friend of mine became very intrigued with fencing, and he became more, I would say, a fencing groupie. He loved to come to the tournaments. He'd go on trips with us because he wanted to see fencing. I said, what's your interest? He said, I'm interested in martial arts. And I said, martial arts, what's that? This is 1968. And he said, well, that's, like karate or kung fu. I said, kung fu, what is that? He said, well, kung fu is what the Chinese call it. And I said, oh, I understand. I know karate. I don't like it. It's too hard. It's brutal. He said, well, kung fu is not like that. And he wouldn't show me. I said, what are you studying? And he says, I'm studying praying mantis. Praying mantis? What is that? He says, it's a form of boxing. Boxing? He says, yeah, women are praying mantis. And so, of course, he was my buddy. But he had promised his Chinese teacher that he wouldn't show anybody. But I cajoled him, I said, you go to all these, I like my stories, come on, you got to show me. So ultimately he relented, and he showed me the fundamental forms of southern praying mantis. And I was amazed by what I saw. I'd never seen anything like it in my life compared to. So I made up my mind to study kung fu. And I thought that all kung fu was praying mantis kung fu. I didn't looking around. Another buddy of mine wanted to study, and this buddy of mine and I are looking for a kung fu school. I said, kung fu? He says, yeah, kung fu, but not just kung fu. The grandmaster of this whole system teaches in Chinatown, and they take white people. Because that's the fact, there was an exclusionary policy in Chinese martial arts that they would never take Caucasians. But this particular school and my Tai Chi master's Tai Chi school accepted Caucasian or non-Chinese students. So we sign up, and it turns out to be the Shaolin style, Hungar, and the Black Tiger system, which is just about the most ferocious thing that you can imagine. The Black Tiger system imitates the movements of a tiger. The Tai Chi masters practice ripping bark off trees. Not the Tai Chi masters, the Tiger Claw masters would rip bark off trees. And this particular grandmaster, I believe he's still alive, Grandmaster Wai Hung Liang, he could actually crush a brick. And that's an awesome power, and it's not one that you really want to have operant all the time. It's very dangerous. Anyway, it started to change my character. I'm a very peaceful person. I'm a kind person. But when you imitate the movements of an animal, especially the ferocity of a black tiger, the actual exercises and the way that it works in your sinews, it starts to change you. And I started to feel the change in me. And it was, let me just say that it was out of character. And it was not what I was looking for. Especially when I found out that the particular, all the schools in Chinatown were involved in the tongues. That's the Chinese underworld. And there were competing tongues. For example, the Hip Sing versus the An Liang. And they had different Chinese mafias, and they had different politics too. Like some people supported, one group supported Mao Zedong, the other one supported the Taiwanese and Chiang Kai-shek, and things were getting hairy in Chinatown in those days. And then I got the message, basically, that if you really wanted to ascend to the higher levels, you had to get involved in that Chinatown underworld scene. for force, you know. So at that time, I also started to experience the first experience of my life of extreme racial prejudice, and that was Chinese racism against white people or Caucasians. I don't like white because I'm not white. If you, as you saw on the video feed, I'm kind of red, pink, orange, depending on my mood, I suppose. Anyway, I'd never experienced racism, and directed at me and two of my nephews, young children whom I took to the school to have a little discipline. The problem was that we were all really good. We excelled. We trained, 5 days a week. And when we went back to the Kung Fu school, we were really much better and advanced in a shorter time than the others. So a certain kind of hostility developed. And as a result, I looked for something else. And just at that time, I was torn because I was very loyal to the school. I liked the system, even though I didn't like the politics. And that's at that time that a Tai Chi master came into my life. I didn't have to look for it. I had heard about it. I did look for it a little bit, but couldn't find it. And it was the same friend with whom I joined the Tiger Claw School who said to me, I said to him, I'd rather study Kung Fu than karate because, they said Kung Fu is better. It's the best martial art. And he said, not exactly. I said, what? He said, not exactly. There's this other strange martial art called Tai Chi. I said, Tai Chi, what is that? He says, it's really weird. You have to learn this dance. You have to learn to dance for 5 years before you can even think of using it as a martial art. And I thought, a dance? He said, yeah. I know the young master who's the disciple of the Grand Master. He's a friend of mine who go to the Buddhist Institute. And he says they call it the form, but when they talk about it, it's really unusual. They kind of whisper it, and I learned the same thing. When they spoke about the form, it was always in very reverential, secretive terms. And then I got the hang of it that when they said the form, did you learn the form? He's got the form. It was with, even audibly, in speech, I could hear a capital T and a capital F, and I started to wonder, what the heck is this, the form? Well, ultimately, what the form is the blueprint for the human being, as nature designed the human to be, an upright being whose locomotive power was derived from gravity. And ultimately, harnessing your chi and your life force and the power of Tai Chi is learning that the force of gravity is moving through every atom in our bodies relentlessly, always trying to pull us down to an early grave. And when you're not in form, when you're not structurally integrated, your skeleton will strain, stress, and then ultimately collapse into itself because of poor alignment. But if you have the form and understand the blueprint for the human skeleton, fundamentally, then you have a vehicle for putting your bones in a younger place every day. And it's very, I liken it often, aging, I liken aging to the building up of a landslide on a mountain, The pressures build up, the strain, the stress, then
Yeah, Chi.
a landslide.
In Korea.
Well, human physical collapse on a certain level. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I was just going to jump in and say, in Korea that the ki is a big thing. Of course, that's, I guess, what in English we refer to as chi. I'm not sure what the Chinese word is exactly, but in
trouble hearing you.
Okay. Yeah, we're having
chi.
Yeah, we're having all kinds of.
It means steam, by the way, for those who.
Mm-hmm. but I guess just to kind of finish the point there, kind of flesh things in a little more, that the ancient...
So Qi is the life force, and the Chinese character for Qi is steam. Steam.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes the Skype deteriorates as time goes on, and it's sometimes on my show.
Yeah, what I'm going to do, actually, Robert, if you can hear me, is I'm going to drop you out of the call and then have you maybe either call back in, or we'll try to reach out to you and bring you back on board. So, all right, just stand by. There we go. All right. Yeah, we still got that major hiss in the background there, and but that's fine. We can hear you more or less, although your stream, unfortunately, is cutting in and out a lot, and it seems we're having trouble hearing one another. So, but we're gonna try to roll with the punches.
Well, you know that. Sure, but I've had this experience before. You're on the other side of the earth, you know, and as fast as the internet is, there is a little bit of a lag. But so let me see, where was I?
Oh,
the Qi. The Qi. You were going to tell me about the Koreans and Qi. I know about the Koreans and Qi. I was very involved in the martial arts world for a long time, and I knew Dok Sum Sun, the Grandmaster of Taekwondo here in America. And I competed and attended many tournaments that were sponsored by the Korean Taekwondo Association in the 70s.
Right. So, I mean, Elvis Presley was something I just found out not too long ago. Actually, his, I think it was Karate Master was Korean as well. One of the things I was going to say, though, Robert, was that isn't it interesting to note how with the Tao, the yin-yang that here we call yang, that it actually is, you find that right on the Korean national flag as well. The red and the blue, very Freemasonic as well. If people know much about that, might take note of. But it is interesting to note that isn't it fascinating too that we just connected yesterday at the very moment where this unification push was taking place and unfolding in a big way. You called, we got in touch, and you said, "Oh, by the way, have you seen the news?" You know, because I told you, "Oh, I live in Korea," which you hadn't known until just yesterday, and you said, "Yeah, it's happening right now." I went and checked things out on CNN, and just had my mind completely blown by what I was watching as we live in real time watched Kim Jong-un walk across the DMZ line to the south, shaking hands with the president of Moon Jae-in, president of South Korea. So, but yeah, unification and the Tao symbol, of course, and go ahead.
Absolutely. Right. That's what I'm saying. I was going to say that it's mind-boggling to me. The Korean War started when I was 1.5 years old. And it's been part of my whole life. And all of a sudden, I can't believe my eyes. This is really happening. But again, I have to caution,
Oh, yeah. Well,
1939. Let's pray for the best. Let's hope for the best, but we have to be cautious. We still have more to go. Who is in things of April 30th and May 1st, which are some of their favorite holidays for mayhem and chaos. And it is a fact that ISIS recently put out a tweet targeting, who did they target? They showed a picture of, they targeted Universal Studios, defense installations, CNN, and they like that name already. That's one. And they depicted a bunch of jihadis shooting up satanic images, erected by Hollywood, and then those studios that I mentioned, Universal, Disney.
We are going to try to kickstart things here once again with Robert. Skype obviously causing all kinds of issues. It's too bad that he doesn't have a Discord account. Would have perhaps made it a little easier to connect, and we probably, I'm guessing, would have had a little more decent quality stream. On the bright side of things, Robert is recording from his end, so it's going to be a little tricky, but it's okay, and he's not answering for the moment. We'll just have to be patient and hang in there. But yes, he is recording from his end of things, and with the post-production end of what we have taking place here at the moment, we can hopefully stitch things together in a quality sort of fashion. Okay, well, we're going to try this again here, Robert. Things are really, we are experiencing some major, the waves out here on the high digital seas are quite out of control. These are epic waves that we're having to contend with this week. So just...
You hear me?
Yeah, sure can. How about yourself? Are we good? We connected here? It's a lot of static and interference, but what can you do? I'm not sure he can even hear me, folks.
I have perfect reception right now. I hear you.
You know, this is...
I hear you perfect.
Okay, well, that's great. And as I was just sharing with listeners just a few moments ago, we are going to, I guess, be left with no other choice but to work on... Oh, he just dropped out again. How about that? All right. Well, you know, what I'm going to do here in live time, this is going to eat up a few minutes probably too, but...
Yes, we're here.
Yeah. All right. Well, I'm going to try to find something here that we can work with as a backup way of recording things. You unfortunately do not have a Discord account, do you? Have you heard of Discord?
No, but I'm creating conversations, and I think I've heard it, but I haven't.
Yeah, well, we don't have the time to get you going on that front here at the present moment. But what I'm going to do is share with you it's a one-click sort of deal here. We're kind of rolling the dice, and it's called the peer.in. So something that we go to as backup from time to time, as well as hold our after shows. So we're just going to see if you click on the link there, and let's see if we can get you connected. There's no sign up necessary last time we checked, so it's a one-click kind of deal, and you're in. Hopefully we can maybe manage to continue to carry on with the rest of the show over there, perhaps, because of just obviously the headache that Skype is giving us at the present moment. Did you manage to get that link, Robert?
Okay.
Yeah, just click. I'm not sure how you're set up there with your computer, if you're able to handle it or not.
Sure,
just it's in the Skype chat, All you have to do is just check out what you've got there in Skype and follow the link.
Right. It hasn't come through.
You can't.
Yeah, Skype is really messing up tonight.
Have you ever had it this bad before?
And
this has got to be probably the worst you've ever experienced on Skype.
I can't see it. I don't see it.
Well, I've shared it with you there on Skype in 2 different locations. What I'll do now is I'll shoot the link off to you here via Facebook, I guess, is the other option that we have. So
just about. I can remember one other one. Okay.
Yeah, we shared it there with you via Facebook, Robert. So if you can't see it in Skype, take a look over on Facebook and see if you're able to connect. But as most listeners can hear as well too, things are simply, it's like we've hit the eye of the hurricane here. So unfortunately, because we are not a multi-million-dollar operation along the lines of, I don't know, Coast to Coast or the Joe Rogan Experience, Red Ice Radio, InfoWars, you name it, that sometimes we do find ourselves technically challenged.
You won't believe what my brother,
most of what I'm hearing on this end is coming through from where you are. I'm not sure if it's, if it's the New York location, maybe Manhattan, although you have, of course.
I think this is getting right now. Could not be found.
You're saying that the link is no good? Just checking here ourselves. And we're in. Yeah, it's we're here. So let's see. We're going to want to do this through a different browser though, maybe in Firefox. But no, you should be able to find that. It is as was explained, a one-click kind of deal, and you're good to go.
Facebook will not come on, even though I'm online with you right now, and we're there's no internet connection to.
You're saying you're being blocked from Facebook at the moment? That's incredible. You cannot access Facebook. They're blocking you. Is that correct?
Still this. It's very logical. We are here on the internet, and we are communicating, and the right now I can't. It's they're blocked.
This is very unfortunate. Anyone's guess, really, what we have presently taking place. We've never experienced this before, of course, on Skype, at least to this magnitude or degree. What the real cause of things is anyone's guess. It could just all be a coincidence, of course. Or it could be something a little more sinister, shall we say. A human hand playing a part in things here as we do our best to reconnect and establish a solid stream and connection. The guest bandwidth is indeed cutting in and out. Yeah, we've been having that problem from the get-go, Joe. So thanks for dropping by, Jewel Lightheart. We're really sorry. All apologies, of course, that we have not, to this point at least, been able to produce the sort of show that we had hoped. It's a major foobar. We've, over the course of 100 plus shows now, in fact, never experienced this at any point whatsoever to this degree. It's completely off the scales. So yeah, Joe Eminon sticking around, stating his voice AGC in his microphone. Just scrolling up to take a look at what we have going on in the YouTube comments section. We had been up to as many as 12 people that had joined us. You know, I'm thinking at this point we're just going to have to reschedule, frankly. We'll see if he manages to connect with us here once again. But quite unfortunate. And disappointing, frankly, to be brutally honest. Thanks to Mr. Anderson, Island Girl 9152, Joe 333, of course. Jennifer Knight popped in for a few moments. Jewel Lightheart, Johnny Canuck, Sword Point 9, Lucille Clark. All of your support is, of course, very much appreciated. And we welcome your comments, thoughts regarding anything having to do with either Robert Morningstar, our current technical quagmire, or even current events and what we see unfolding on the Korean Peninsula. Let's maybe transition here and turn things over so we can open the lines and welcome your calls. If anyone wants to drop in, we could definitely do that. So if anyone is standing by, interested in joining us via Skype, assuming you typically have a decent connection, by all means, more than welcome to drop in and be a part of things here via the Robin Hood. It looks like Robert is at the moment trying to reboot and start Skype up once again. Utterly mind-boggling and beyond me. Once again, why we are experiencing the extent of technical issues that we are completely off the charts. Ridiculously so. Maybe you yourselves, once again, out there in the listening audience, have your own thoughts or theories why this is suddenly, for some reason, taking place. All just a major coincidence? Or could it be actual hands-on active sabotage? So no, he's not answering on his end for the moment. Once again, opening up the lines. If you yourselves would like to drop by and join us, by all means. What's on your mind? What would you like the world to hear about? Maybe something that the mainstream media has completely dropped the ball on, or just simply not talking about enough. What's on your plate? Of course, this past week we did hold our annual 420 World Roundtable. Reconnecting once again here via Skype, Mr. Morningstar. What is the latest from your vantage point?
Yep. Yes. Well, I had to I got out of Skype altogether and rebooted it to see if it would improve it. So we've succeeded in connecting it again.
Yeah, unfortunately, the
I think that we're being honest. The book up. I finally got into Facebook, but I don't see the post that you sent me for the link.
It's right in your private messaging.
I'm in my page.
No, it's right. I shared it via private message.
I can't hear.
Via a private message. Still, you can't hear me, I guess. So we have nothing going on here whatsoever, being blocked on all fronts.
Yeah, through private message. I was there and I saw a YouTube connection, but I didn't.
No, it's appear.in/w WPRPN .minds. Appear.in WPRPN.minds. It's a one-click affair. Last time I checked, no sign up. No, nothing necessary. Just click on the link and you're in. Can you hear me, Mr. Morningstar? Are we connected here? Or well, we've got someone there. Let's see now. Hang on just a second. Okay, it looks like we've got a guest over there. Robert, can you hear me over on Appear? Hello, Robert. Mr. Morningstar. No, we got Fox.
Yo, what's up? Can you hear me?
Well, more or less, yeah. So have you been checking out the stream that we've been struggling to put together here this week?
Oi, right. Well, I haven't checked yet. But if your stream ever falls apart, we're gonna be running our 24 hours soon, and we can cover that for you. How you been, brother? What's up? What's up?
Well, we're working on keeping the show up and afloat, and it looks like we're taking on a lot of water at the moment here. So, just once again, trying to encourage Robert to click on the appear.in link, which he is struggling to find or see.
Well, in the meantime, I'm rocking out about $1,000 worth of new equipment, and I must say, although I'm not proud that I had to dig that deep into my savings, I'm happy with what I got. Got a Lenovo small form factor machine, brother, running Windows 10. It's actually running pretty smooth, believe it or not. So what's tonight's show about?
Well, Robert Morningstar is a preeminent figure within the world of parapolitics and conspiracy research. He's also a Tai Chi master and a certified licensed FAA pilot, and I believe flight instructor as well, among many other things. A true Renaissance man. So it's really quite unfortunate that we've experienced these technical issues, because we had intended to present to the public a real dynamite show, of course. Information packed with all kinds of insight from his end, of course. He's been around the block a time or two, and certainly, a voice worth listening to when it comes to many issues that are out there and in need of addressing. Okay, so what do we got happening here? Let's see. This is a little having to juggle things around here. We got people coming in and out of the appear.in room. The platform itself, not overly thrilled or happy with the way they've been updating their terms of service and the way that they're structuring things from their standpoint. Business, I guess, as it were. So a bit of a story, real bait and switch type affair. But we're going to see how things progress on that front. It is an alternative and a backup way of doing things when and in the event that Skype craps out, especially to the degree that we're witnessing here this week. Yes, Robert, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Sure can. Still a lot of hiss and background noise, but if you will, let's continue and try to carry on here as best we can. Fingers crossed. Where were we now? This has been a major the worst.
I was saying that I was praying for the people of Korea, but let's not be disillusioned or don't delude ourselves. It's a very tough road. I think that what has happened recently is a shock to Kim Il-jung, Kim Jong-un, and that the collapse of the mountain and the nuclear research facilities had a big effect on that. And I just hope that it will work out. But the enemies of peace are always machinating and orchestrating events to divide people from resolving issues. They live by chaos order. Out of chaos order, their idea of order is that they have to create chaos first to fix things up. Nice job, right?
That's right. Endless.
Break something up and then you derive millions.
Yeah, endless order out of chaos.
Go ahead.
Endless order out of chaos. Exactly what you're saying. The Hegelian dialectic, ordo ab chaos. Let's talk a little bit about this mountain. I guess this is the test site that they had been setting off various nuclear devices and so forth, which just now they say in politics, timing is everything. Mike Pompeo, behind the scenes, apparently, right. So the story goes. Well, do you want to fill our listeners in and just look at the connection between these events, including the potential use of what I think is high energy, these direct energy. However, how do you describe these weapons? The direct energy beams, I guess, or weapons that can be used. Scalar weaponry and so forth. Yeah, sure. And targeting that mountain potentially. I mean, that's one scenario. What are your thoughts on Mike Pompeo, the behind-the-scenes activity?
They did detonate. They did detonate at least 5 hydrogen bombs, and people don't know, but the United States, in order to deal with toxic wastes in Nevada and Utah, was detonating underground nuclear weapons, right? Hydrogen hydrogen bombs. And what they do is they create a spherical cavity that's lined by glass. And then the U.S. pouring all the junk from nuclear reactors down into those cavities. Now, if the terrain is not like Nevada or Utah, if the soil has a different composition and density, they'll blow up those caverns, create hollows in research facilities. And so to save face, he said they've completed their work and that they don't have to test it. And Mike Pompeo gave him, gave him the look. I think all you have to do is look at the first picture of looking at him. There's no dimples in that picture, I'll tell you. And then it's more amiable and affable. But to see the two of them, the presidents of North and South Korea, shaking hands at the demilitarized zone and each taking steps into the other's kingdoms, that's a world-shaking event. And the leftist media doesn't know what to do with it.
Well, how about presenting Trump with the Nobel Peace Prize? Obama got it for just having a great smile. Is what it is the best that he could come up with. He just looked good on camera and talked a great game. He didn't do anything, but it seems Trump is actually, and Dennis Rodman too. Let's not forget. A lot of people just laughing at the guy, But I was following things myself. We've got our sources here, people that are from time to time. They do provide us with information that the mainstream media does not report on. So we were kind of up to speed and in the loop, as it were, to a certain extent, as far as developments unfolding behind the scenes. But even the Joe Rogan experience that Pauly Shore was on just a couple months ago, talking about how he had been speaking to Dennis Rodman, and according to what he was told, Kim Jong-un actually very much respected Trump. Although on the surface of things, there's a lot of bluster and bravado that when from another standpoint, it was more just a tip of the hat that he thought greatly of the man. So, but what do you think of Rodman's shuttle diplomacy and the fact, I'm not sure if you're aware of this or not, his trip, though, his most recent one was sponsored by Potcoin. And this is the tie-in with the fact that in the DPRK, marijuana is completely legal. In the South, meanwhile, the democratic, freedom-loving, democratic, South, that it's draconian measures are taken if you're caught with any pot on your person whatsoever. But can you believe it? In the North, completely legal. Harness that potential and promote the pot tourism sector. Why the heck not?
Yeah. And don't beat up your tourists and don't kill them and send them home missing teeth and poisoned inside, It's a really weird thing. All of that bluster, as you called it, it was for home consumption. It's very difficult for Westerners to understand the degree of mind control that has been exercised on the poor North Korean people. I pity them, I have no hatred or hostility toward North Korea or its people. My hostility is to what communism does to all people. Anytime it takes over a country, it takes over minds and starts to change hearts. And if it can't change minds and hearts, it will cut those hearts out. And in the case of China, sell them. It's really a diabolical thing. I recommend everyone who's listening to read something called the 9 Commentaries on the Chinese Communist Party. It's 9 essays condemning, and written by a former member of the Communist Party in China. And these commentaries gave birth to the Falun Gong movement. In a sense, they're promoted by Epoch Times. But it points out that in all communist regimes, killing is a state policy and a necessary policy exercised every 7 years in pogroms, whether they're needed or not, They are needed in order to keep the populace terrorized. And so they will engage in show trials and in framing people simply because that's the way it operates. It operates by terror, and if people get too relaxed, too at ease, too comfortable, they'll forget that terror. So that's one thing, that one condemnation. The other one is that communism is anti-nature. Anywhere that communism takes over, nature is despoiled, nature is desecrated. There are no birds in China. The most polluted and toxic country in all of Western Europe is Romania. In Nicaragua, there is a state of martial law right now, and they're shooting students. They're raiding colleges and high schools and taking out students and executing them for having sympathies, non-communist sympathies, meaning that Trump is inspiring the whole world. He's inspiring Iran. He's inspiring the people of Korea, because truth-telling has an incredible power over people. And I think that's the shock that's moving through all politics in every nation and through political leaders. And I think that as tough as Kim Jong-un is, that he recognizes and respects toughness and straight talk. And no one can doubt, the president has minced no words about Korea, its stance, its position in the world, where we stand, and how we look upon their threats. I often tell the story. You know, as I said, I grew up in New York City. I grew up in Hell's Kitchen. If you want to see where I grew up as a boy, look at the movie On the Waterfront, and look at those scenes when they're on the roof, looking at the birds and the coops and all that stuff on there. That's where I came from. And there was a lot of tension. There was ethnic tension, and there was hostility. There were gangs. And my father once said to me, he said, "Robert, let me tell you something. If somebody ever comes up to you and threatens you and says they're going to kill you, don't let them walk away. Because if you do let them walk away, they will come back, they will try to kill you, and you're going to be walking around looking over your shoulder, not knowing where or who or what. If anybody ever threatens to kill you, tell them to do it right there." And I think that that's what Trump did, in a sense, right? And he called his bluff, and I think that the reality, what the surgical strikes that he saw in Syria, that's a very important thing. I think that that was one of the main reasons that the president attacked those laboratories in Syria. I think that the purported chemical gas attack was a false flag attack. I think it was conducted by the Allies, meaning Britain and Israel and the people who want the United States to continue to keep bogged down in the Middle East. As well as you mentioned Skripal, the attempted assassination of Skripal and his daughter. That made absolutely no sense at all, and I highly doubt that it was Putin. It has all the hallmarks of an MI6 intelligence operation, just the same way that they killed David Kelly. Do you remember Dr. David Kelly? He was a member of the UN Inspection Commission that went to Iraq to look for weapons of mass destruction. He went back to England and said there were no weapons of mass destruction, and he was adamant about it. And then they found him under a tree, dead, with his wrists slit, and claiming that he had committed suicide because he had been disgraced, he had lost his job. But I don't think it was that. Losing a job is one thing, losing your life is another, and committing suicide over it was very out of character for anybody that knew David Kelly. But, you know, James Bond is out there. James Bond does his killings for political purposes, and I think that that's what happened with Skripal. And I don't believe that Bashar Assad used chemical weapons in Doma, nor do I believe he used them back in, 2013 or 2015, the last time the red line was drawn. I don't believe he did that. It's not necessary. He was already quite in command of the area and of the city. But, you know, the white helmets have a very bad reputation for people that know. And they are white helmeted soldiers that move into these situations pretending to be rescuers, but they are really just terrorists with white helmets. And I think that they were involved in that situation. They produce fake videos to fool the public as well.
You know, you've touched on so many points there that one of the things I guess that needs to be talked about, of course, is Porton Down, and I've shared a link here in the streaming chat, but that there was a $70 million Pentagon program at Porton Down, the very same place where this highly exotic nerve agent was said to have originated. So, I mean, it just, come on, people. You know, cui bono, who does it benefit? All the usual suspects. It's like the little boy who cries wolf. You know, you hear this over and over and over again. And it gets to the point where people, no wonder so many people are questioning and saying that it's all a load of nonsense. But just let me say on top of that, you raised the name, Robin Cook is another British MP, along with David Kelly, the doctor. That's right. But that's very suspicious, the way that Robin Cook, I'm not sure if that name rings a bell or not, but he died he was out hiking a mountain and collapsed, apparently. Yes. He was medevaced out of there, but very suspicious. On top of that, the way that, I'm not sure, have you been following this what seems to be a war on alternative healers, naturopaths, and the like? Yes. It's staggering. What's the statistical probability of this sort of thing happening to this extent with the body count, death toll?
Beyond the laws of chance. Way beyond the laws of chance. And the interesting thing, I'm glad you mentioned it, because I am very involved in the the health movement and real health, not allopathic medicine, not big pharma. And the big thing about all of these people is that they were promoting alternative cures to cancer. And I understand most recently, from the most recent report that I got, that most of them were promoting GCMAF. GCMAF is an acronym for factor that kills cancer, and it's something that it has something to do with culturing it in yogurt. And there are YouTubes giving instruction on how to develop or how to make your own GCMA. This link in all of those, the majority of those deaths, they were promoting cancer cures that were non-chemotherapy, not radiological, and quite vicious. And there is a cancer mafia in the world, and it reaps tremendous profits from continuation of treatment, not from curing.
No, that's right. Absolutely.
About how many people are going down to Mexico. And then there's Dr. Brzezinski in Texas, who developed his own protocols for curing cancer. And the FDA came down on him, sued him multiple times, tried to put him in jail many times, and in the process stole protocols. One of the he and a group of Israelis patented Dr. Brzezinski's protocols for curing cancer. And there's another one, Dr. Tullio Simoncini of Rome, another very well-known oncologist. He cancer with injections of a certain 7% solution of bicarbonate of soda, and injecting 7 injections around the tumor on the breast, and the tumors were dissolving in a month's time to 2 months' time. The cancer in Europe went and discrediting him. I'd like to go back to what we're talking about. You just before you said, "Oh, it's just a big conspiracy. It's conspiracy theorist." And again, Dr. J in L.A. I was on this show, and he was talking about conspiracy theories. And John, there are no. It's just one conspiracy. All of the rest are subsets of that big giant one. And I do believe that. And that. But that giant conspiracy is in decay. It's in attrition. It is being exposed, beaten, dissolved, and he have that part of this new criminal syndicate that is involved in drug trafficking, gun running to war zones, human trafficking, pedophilia, pederasty, sexual exploitation of men, women, children, slavery in Africa, slavery in Saudi Arabia. Do you know that Filipinos are forbidden to go to Saudi Arabia by law of the Philippines?
I had no idea. How about that? Yeah.
So many Filipino citizens, men and women, went to work in Saudi Arabia, and then they would find themselves slaves in Saudi Arabia. They were beaten, tortured, abused. Some died. And as a result, the Filipino government did an investigation and found that Filipino citizens were all being abused in Saudi Arabia, called them all home, and passed a law that no Filipinos can work in Saudi Arabia.
Yeah, there's no doubt from this end of things that the modern day slave trade is alive and well.
Friends, American friends, who worked in Saudi Arabia and cannibalism in South Africa.
Okay. Well,
white meat is a very high price in South Africa.
I'm sorry, did you say
warn the white farmers to get out, or else or else 20 and nobody says a word.
Yeah, I'm not sure how much talk there is in the big corporate Western media outlets as far as what is presently taking place in South Africa. Some pretty disturbing reports, though, to put it mildly, the way that things have taken a real sudden turn for the worse as far as the white Afrikaner farmers are concerned, and
I said,
yeah, go ahead. You're breaking up pretty bad.
Africa, there is a human meat market, and they especially prize children.
This has got to be all in the underground, though, of course, too. It can't be all on the up and up. They don't do this in the open, surely. With this flesh trade and market, as you put, the cannibalism economy, it's got to be a strictly underground affair in South Africa. Robert, we can't hear you from this end once again. So breaking up quite badly. Not sure what we're going to do with the stream that we have managed to capture here to this point.
I'll try to keep it. Yeah.
Thankfully, you are recording from your end, so that is a positive thing to keep in mind. We'll see what we can do here with the post-production end of things. All right, back once again.
Here we are again.
Yeah, this is not. This is just one more reason, as far as I'm concerned, to head over to support other voice over internet protocols, VoIP apps, and so forth, such as Discord or Appear.
So, I was saying that it has been exposed, and the media.
Well, to this point, frankly, from what I'm hearing on this end, I would say at least 75% of what we've recorded is pretty much... Well, the call has been dropped. How about that? I think that was Skype that shut us down on that occasion. So this has been a total train wreck, obviously, to put it mildly. I'm not going to sugarcoat things. What's the point? And we can't even connect for some reason. Isn't that something? How about that? Jeez. Let's try this again from... No. Skype is really just doing everything it can to prevent us from connecting. And then once we do, of course, his end of things, the sound quality is not all that great, unfortunately. Okay, take 10, 11, 12. What is this now? How many times are we going to try to make this thing happen with only a few minutes left to go in the show? Robert, are we on the same page here? Yes.
Can you hear?
Well, yeah, I can, but you're breaking up really bad. So once again, the seas that we are finding ourselves cast in the midst of this week are really quite challenging, unfortunately. But what can you do but carry on? Of course, we've tried to turn to the Appear.in app, and that is not it's not, unfortunately. Okay, so Robert, you seem to think what you're saying here is that someone is disconnecting us. Our calls are being shut down, but not by us.
Yeah.
Quite peculiar, very odd. Somebody running some major interference. We've experienced this on other platforms as well, too, unfortunately, where the sabotage has been quite...
Not by us. Over to Blog Talk Radio, we do 15 minutes, half an hour, and all of a sudden it started to happen. I'm sure it's interference, because not only are our phone calls being disconnected, not by us, but I'm looking at my Facebook and it says my chat has been disconnected, and I wasn't able to get your messages in chat. That's very strange.
Absolutely. So we've only got another maybe 10 minutes or so, there's going to be a lot of what we've tried to put together here this week, which will be completely, I think, useless and not worth listening to when it comes to the post-production end of things. Thankfully, though, you are recording from your end of the presentation, so we'll hopefully manage to make that
sure
bring the two sides together basically through Audacity and try to get some.
Sure. Well, I've done that before.
Yes. Yeah. So there's so many different talking points that we really do have here.
That'll be fine. I'll send you the files right through Skype. I'll do a little bit. Well, I have a few I'd like to get in before before whatever happens. If you don't mind, I would like to say that Comey is in big trouble. James Comey. He is a pathetic liar. Judge DeGeno calls him a dirty cop who has written a 15-page suicide note. And while all the leftist media is trying to defend him, I am trying to offend him. Right? Defense, offense, okay? Well, here's the opening paragraph, most secret capital letters.
Well, we've lost Robert once again. No big surprise, frankly. So, major interference once again. Unfortunate to see this taking place. But there's nothing, frankly, that we can do from this end of things. He was talking, I guess, a little bit about James Comey, head of the FBI, from what I understand. Not really too up to speed on the American political scene when it comes right down to it, but I guess from what I do understand, Comey has been in the hot seat as of late, speaking before Congress, or is it the Senate? I don't know. It just goes to show my ignorance of the American political system. Having to face a few tough questions, as was Mark Zuckerberg, of course, too, let's not forget. A lot of issues with Facebook and the way that they treat and handle certain accounts, people that have their presence established over on Facebook, and because of their politically incorrect, what is seen as politically incorrect views, whether satire or sincere beliefs, they do everything they can to shut them down, have their voices squelched, to limit their reach, and so on and so forth. So all kinds of chicanery and skullduggery going on behind the scenes. Conspiracy is the stuff of which politics thrives upon, and frankly, the entire political machine, whether it's America, China, North, South Korea, Canada, it's all the same basic landscape and the way that things function, no different, frankly, when it comes right down to it, as far as the conspiratorial aspect or end of things. That's simply how politics is. So, our call has dropped once again, and not sure if there's much point really in carrying on much longer here. We have pretty much reached the 90-minute mark, having some major difficulties as people out there on the listing end of things can probably quite clearly hear and comprehend. We're gonna close things out, though, at this moment. I guess unfortunately had not managed to wrap things up or even just present this week's show in the way that we had hoped. UFOdigest.com is one of Robert's main websites. Of course, you can also find him on Facebook and Twitter. Rob Morningstar. Real quick and simple search. Just one last thing. Robert Erdman had commented the other day on Facebook that he felt Robert needed to get to mending the UFO Digest magazine, which originally was his mainstay. And from Stephen, from his perspective at least, that Robert should be, well, I'm sorry, what he's trying to say here is that he should be honoring the late Dirk Vanderploeg. Not sure if I managed to pronounce that name properly or not. Sounds like a Dutch name. Someone who just, I guess, not so long ago passed away and had, up until the time, presumably, of his death, been more or less at the helm of UFOdigest.com. So we'll see what, if anything, occurs on that front with respect to UFO Digest. But major thanks, of course, to Robert Morningstar. I myself, once again, cannot believe the extent, the magnitude to which this train wreck of a show has presented itself. He gave it his best. I did my part from this end of things. Unfortunately, it seems Skype was just not interested in cooperating whatsoever. Some major interference being run, clearly, from some angle. Hopefully we can maybe think about rescheduling, trying to get a better connection established, whether via Discord, appear.in, or even Google Hangouts. Just have to weigh our options and take things from there. Got a great schedule coming up here throughout the course of May. Just working on putting that calendar together right now. Was hoping to ask Robert about the John Ford case, actually. Whether he's heard of Mr. Ford's plight and situation, up to speed at all on the history of John's case. Maybe do that next time around, I suppose. But as far as the May schedule goes, we've got Robert Homrich returning to the Robin Hood May 4th, talking all things Illuminati, conspiracy, the power elite, and so on and so forth. He himself, of course, being based out of the Washington, D.C. area, should have a lot of good things to offer and share with listeners. It'll be great to get back up to speed once again with Robert. Another Robert, May 11th, Robert Vandenbroek, another Dutch personality out of the Netherlands, of course. Self-styled psychic of sorts, UFO experiencer. Certainly bringing to the show a number of things from out of left field. will be quite interesting to see what he has to say as far as his thoughts on ETs, life on other planets, alien interaction with humans, and so forth is concerned. Trying to get things set up as well here to connect with Princess Wells on the 18th of May. She herself, another podcasting and broadcasting type personality who we came across via Facebook a couple of months ago. Scouted her out, thought she might make for an interesting guest, talking Second Amendment rights, pop culture, her thoughts on piracy and whatnot. So pretty open-ended show as far as things go. And on the 25th, wrapping up our May schedule, Kaiser Schuff. We've actually already got that in the can, folks. It's a pre-recorded affair, so all that's left to do really is run post-production on that and have it stream out live. In hopefully what we will end up having to be in a little more high-quality form than what was experienced this week with Mr. Morningstar. But do stay tuned. Don't lose heart. We intend to be back in full form next week, and hopefully with many weeks to follow after that as well. On that note, though, be sure to check us out on Facebook, minds.com, Twitter. Just do a quick search for WPRPN, Pirate Radio Podcasts, via DuckDuckGo, hopefully, is the best way to go. To hell with Google. Vote with your mice, folks. Until we meet again out on the high digital seas, I am your host, as always, the ship's Chief Communications Officer, Jaffe Ryder.
I know. There we be. Having carefully looked over each of our navigation panel instruments, checking every level, switch, dial, cable, knob, and pulley, by all accounts and indications, we indeed see it's time once again to drop anchor inside Mystic Bay and draw an end to another week of Pirate Radio Podcasts. Remember, if you're looking for a little more lively online action, keep in mind we've likely got yet another great free-flowing Rogues Gallery after show coming up for the next hour in either Skype, Google Hangouts, or Appear.in. Also, if you've in any way enjoyed or found yourself benefiting from the shows we've tirelessly produced over the past 2 years, you might want to drop by our Patreon tip jar page and lend a little support. Half of all network donations go directly to charity. Help to keep those numbers growing over on Patreon, and we'll be able to extend even more of a generous pirate hand. Looking forward now to the balance of 2018, we're still not quite yet booked. So if you yourself have a new, novel, intriguing, or otherwise underreported idea, unique individual, or pressing item in mind, be sure to either drop us a line directly over on WPRPN.com or fire us a quick email via pirateoneradio@gmail.com. We're always open to exploring fresh creative suggestions, intriguing guest ideas, cutting-edge discussion topics, and captivating themes. You can further embark on your own personal pirate journey
by either liking, commenting on, subscribing to, or just following us via virtually any mainstream social media platform, including Twitter, Facebook, Google+, or Minds.com. So don't forget to become engaged. Until we meet again out on the high digital seas, I'm your host as always, the ship's Chief Communications Officer, Jaffe Ryder. Tally-ho.